The human was dragged into the throne room with chains around his wrists and ankles. His face was bruised and his clothes were torn from battle. The tall alien guards pushed him forward until he stood in front of the throne. The floor was cold beneath his feet, but it was the silence in the room that chilled him more. On the throne sat Empress of the Selnari Empire. She looked young, but her glowing silver eyes showed ancient power. Her long dark purple robe flowed like water, and her skin shimmered with golden tones. Everyone in the room bowed before her except the human. He stayed standing, breathing heavily. One of the guards spoke loudly. "Your Majesty, this is the human soldier we captured at the border. He killed 3 of our warriors before surrendering." Empress raised a hand, silencing him. Her eyes locked on the human, scanning him like a puzzle. She stood slowly and walked down the crystal steps toward him. Each step echoed across the room. The human didn't flinch, stared back, unafraid. "You're not what I expected," she said, her voice soft yet strong. "Humans. Supposed to be wild, ugly creatures, but you." Her voice trailed off. The guards looked at each other in confusion. No ruler had ever spoken to a prisoner like this. The Empress stopped right in front of him, only inches away. She tilted her head, her silver eyes searching his face. "What is your name?" she asked. He didn't answer. She leaned in closer, her breath brushing his cheek. "You are not afraid of me?" "Oh," he replied. A strange smile appeared on her lips. "Interesting." She turned to her guards. "Leave us." The guards hesitated. "Your Majesty," I said. "Leave," she repeated, her tone cold and sharp. Without another word, the guards bowed and left the room, the doors closing behind them with a heavy thud. Now they were alone. The Empress stepped even closer. "Are you not scared of death?" "I've already lost everything," the human said. "I'm not afraid to lose myself too." She touched the chain on his wrist lightly, then pulled back as if shocked by something. Her hands trembled. "You're dangerous," she whispered, more to herself than him. "Then kill me." She laughed softly. "I don't want to kill you. Then what do you want?" he asked. The Empress looked into his eyes, her body breathing faster. "I don't know. I should hate you. I should destroy you right now. But something about you, it pulls me. It confuses me. It makes me feel things I haven't felt in years." He didn't speak. "You'll break me," she whispered. "Do it anyway." The human blinked. Did he hear her right? She stepped back and touched her own chest, her skin glowing faintly. "I dreamt of a voice like yours. A presence like yours. I thought it was madness. But now you're here." He tugged slightly at the chains. "Is this a dream too?" She reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were warm. He didn't pull away. "Why do I feel like I belong to you?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," he said, "but I'm still a prisoner." She moved behind him and touched the lock on his chains. "For now," she whispered. The chains loosened, just enough to give him room to breathe. Not freedom, but not pain either. She sat on a step beside him, her long robe trailing across the floor. "I've ruled this empire for 50 years, she said. "I've crushed rebellions, won wars, and made planets bow. But right now sitting beside you, I feel weak." He looked at her, trying to understand her. "You feel weak because of me?" he asked. "No," she said with a soft smile, "because I don't want you to leave." Outside the throne room, footsteps echoed. Voices grew louder. The Empress stood quickly. "They'll come back soon. They will question everything. They'll sense something is wrong." "What will?" "You tell them?" the human asked. "I'll tell them you're just a prisoner," she said. "But in here," she touched her heart, "you're more than that." He watched her walk back to her throne. She sat tall and proud again. The mask of a ruler returned, but her eyes still burned with something else's ire. Confusion and fear. The doors opened, and the guards returned. "Take him back to the holding cell," she ordered without looking at them. "But do not harm him." The guards bowed and moved toward the human. Before they reached him, she added softly, "He belongs to me now." The guards froze for a second, then nodded and pulled him away. As the human was let out, He turned back to look at her one. Last time, she didn't move, but her glowing eyes followed him. Something had started between them, something no law, no empire, no chain could stop. And in the quiet throne room, the Empress whispered again to herself, "You'll break me. But I won't stop you, asterisk." The Empress sat alone in her chamber. That night, staring into the reflection of her silver eyes in a floating glass mirror. Her mind was not calm. Her hands kept shaking. Her heart kept pounding. No matter how many deep breaths she took, the memory of that human's gaze would not leave her. A look of fire, a look of challenge, a look that made her feel seen, not as a ruler, but as a woman. This had never happened before. She stood and walked to the corner of her private quarters, where only her most trusted servant was allowed. The tall windows showed the glowing city of Xyrella outside, with ships flying between towers. Yet the beauty of the view brought no peace tonight. She was burning from within. The moment she touched the human earlier, a spark ran through her fingers. It was not pain. Not exactly. It was something deeper. Like a door had opened. A door she had kept locked for too long. That door now refused to close. A quiet knock came from the door. Her maid Rolani entered carefully, holding a tray with calming tea made from lunar blossom petals. She placed it on the table and looked at her Empress with worry in her eyes. "You have not eaten all day, my lady," Rolani said gently. "I'm not hungry," the Empress replied. Rolani paused. "Is it about the human?" The Empress slowly turned her face toward her. "I told you never to speak of it. You didn't have to," Rolani said softly. "Your hands are shaking. Your voice has changed. Even your steps echo differently. He's inside your thoughts." Saralith closed her eyes. "He's not supposed to be. Then why did you send guards away today? Why did you free his chains a little? That is not something the Empress of the Selnari Empire does for any prisoner." Saralith walked to the center of the chamber, her robe flowing behind her. "Because when I looked at him, I didn't see an enemy. I saw something familiar. I saw ... connection." Rolani's expression changed. Fear now appeared in her eyes. "My Empress, if the Council senses this, they will. Act quickly, you know the old law. Our kind may rule the stars, but a ruler's heart cannot belong to an outsider. Especially not to a human." Saralith looked toward the shadows. "There is something I haven't told anyone. When I touched him, my skin reacted. Not just with heat, my blood lit up. The markings of the old line shimmered faintly on my wrist. That hasn't happened since my birth." Rolani stepped back, shocked. "Are you saying the bond?" "But it hasn't appeared in generations," as now Saralith whispered. Silence filled the room. The tea went cold. Rolani knelt. "And the danger is greater than I thought. You are not just drawn to him by desire. You are marked by fate. That man could be your true match." Saralith sat down slowly, her knees weak. "But how can that be? He's human. He should not even be able to activate the bond. None of our own kind ever could." "Maybe that is the answer," Rolani said. "Maybe that's why your soul never responded to any of them. Maybe he is the one your blood has waited for." The Empress looked out the window again, but her thoughts were far from the city. They were in the dark, quiet cell below the palace, where a man in chains waited, not as a slave, not as a threat, but as something more. Hours passed. The stars shifted. Saralith could no longer sleep. She stood up, changed into a simpler robe, and moved through secret paths known only to the royals. Her bare feet made no sound as she descended into the lower chambers of the palace. The guards standing near the prisoner's door bowed, unaware of her reasons. She waved her hand, and the door unlocked with a soft sound. Inside the cell, the human sat against the wall, half asleep, his arms resting on his knees. He looked up, surprised, when she entered. "You again," he said calmly. She said nothing for a moment. Then she stepped closer, her voice low. "Do you feel it too?" He looked at her carefully. "Feel what?" She didn't explain. Instead, she reached out and took his hand. For a second, the air grew warm, and a faint golden glow passed over. Her skin again. He saw it. She knew he did. "That," she said. "That's what I feel." The humans stared at their hands. He wasn't afraid, just confused. Why me? He asked. I'm just a soldier. I don't even know your people. Don't know, she answered. But something inside me knows you, and now I can't stay away. He looked at her and said something she didn't expect. Then take off the chains. Her hand reached for the lock. But she stopped. Not yet, she whispered. They still watch. They still fear. But I will come again, he nodded. You already broke something in me. Now I think you're letting something break in yourself too. She stepped back, her fingers still warm from the touch. You'll break me, she said again, and still, I'm coming back. Turned and left, her heart beating louder than any alarm in the palace. What began as a prisoner's tale was turning into something no empire could control. The Empress was falling, not to weakness, but to something even more powerful than the throne itself. A sharp wind moved through the royal garden as morning light broke over the horizon. But inside the palace, where stone walls hid deeper secrets, a single touch had already changed the course of destiny. Empress Seralith walked through the silent hallways with a mind heavier than her crown. Her skin still burned from the warmth of the human's hand. No servant, no royal, no warrior had ever awakened the golden glow that now refused to fade from her wrist. She returned to her private chamber and locked the doors. Her breathing quickened as she stood before a hidden mirror carved from crystal stone. She raised her hand, palm upward, and watched as faint patterns shimmered beneath her skin. Those ancient marks, symbols of an old magic, pulsed in time with her heartbeat. They had been sleeping inside her blood for years, waiting for a true match. And now, without warning, they had awakened with a single human touch. Not even her father, the last ruler of the empire, had ever spoken of such things. The sacred bond was believed to be a myth, a legend whispered among royal daughters, but myths did not make her knees weak. Legends did not leave her trembling alone at night. She called for Rilani, her most trusted maid. The girl arrived quickly, eyes wide with worry. Bring me the old scrolls from the sealed chamber, the Empress ordered. The ones with the bloodline symbols, Rilani did not argue. She bowed deeply and disappeared. Moments later, Seralith stood before ancient scrolls that had not seen daylight in 100 years. She rolled one open, tracing her fingers over the faded ink. It told of an empress long ago who found her match in an unexpected being from a distant world. Their bond brought not ruin, but rebirth to the empire. The scroll ended with a warning. Only one soul in 1,000 lifetimes would awaken the marks. And if denied, the pain would drive the chosen mad. Her hand shook. She was already feeling that pain now, a silent fire under her skin. Later that day, the Grand Council summoned her. She walked into the chamber like a storm trapped in human form. The elders stood around a glowing table, their long robes swaying, their eyes sharp with suspicion. We sense disturbance in your aura, Empress, said Elder Nurak. Your energy has changed. I've simply not rested, she replied without emotion. Another elder leaned forward. A human lives beneath this palace, a soldier from a filthy world. We demand to know why he has not yet been executed. Seralith held her gaze steady. He is my prisoner. I will deal with him as I see fit. Forgive us, Empress, Elder Nurak said carefully, but the law is clear. If any outsider touches the royal blood, it must be reported. You were alone with him. You disobeyed protocol. I follow the law, she replied. The human remains untouched. She lied, and they believed her. For now, that night, she could not resist. She returned again to the chamber where the human lay in chains. His wounds had healed. His eyes met hers the moment the door opened, as if he had been waiting without sleep. You're back, he said. I had to see you, she whispered. He stood up. His arms remained bound, but his spirit no longer looked broken. I dreamed of you, he said. Her eyes widened. You stood over me, he continued, your body glowing like fire, your hands reaching for mine. But when I tried to touch you, you vanished. It was not a dream, she said. It was a memory. He stepped forward. What is happening to us? Saralith moved closer, placing her palm gently against his chest. Her marks began to glow. Again, a soft light poured from her wrist and reflected in his skin. She felt his heart beat under her hand. Fast, strong, real. The bond has chosen, she whispered. You've awakened something ancient in me, something I did not know still lived. The human looked down at the glow, then back into her eyes. And what does it want? She didn't answer with words. She leaned in slowly and placed her forehead against his. The space between them disappeared. Their breathing became one. Her body trembled, not from fear, but from surrender. Suddenly, the door burst open. Guards stormed in, weapons raised. The room filled with red light and alarm. Sirens. Rilani ran in behind them, shouting that someone had triggered the council's watchers. The human was yanked away from her. She screamed, her voice shaking the walls. But it was too late. The bond had already been seen. Elder Nurok stood behind. The guards, his face pale with horror. You have broken the law of the stars, he said. You let a human touch your soul. Saralith stood tall. Her face burned with anger and fire. You will not touch him, she said. He is a threat, the elder shouted. And now, so are you. The guards raised their weapons. Saralith raised her hands. The golden marks across her skin flared with light. A wave of raw energy pulsed through the room, knocking every guard off their feet. The council watched in shock as the Empress stood glowing with power not seen in generations. She turned to them and said the words that would be written into history. This human is not my prisoner. He is my bond, my match, and I will protect him with the blood of the stars. No one dared to move, because in that moment they saw not just a ruler, but a force they could no longer control. The palace was alive with whispers and fear. Guards patrolled the halls with sharpened senses, and the council convened endlessly to decide the fate of their empress. Yet in the heart of the turmoil, Saralith stood firm, the glowing marks on her skin fading only slightly, but never gone. She could no longer hide the bond she shared with the human, who had become more than a prisoner. In the privacy of her bedchamber, she waited for him. The room was dark, lit only by the pale glow of bioluminescent plants that curled along the walls. The air felt heavy, charged with unspoken tension. When the door slid open, the human entered, still bound, but carrying an unbroken spirit. His eyes searched hers, trying to understand the impossible connection growing between them. Saralith took a hesitant step forward. I should not have brought you here, she said softly. But I needed to know if this bond means more than pain. He looked around the lavish room, but focused only on her. I don't understand all of this. The blood marks, the magic. All I know is when you touch me, I feel something I never knew was possible. Like I'm part of something bigger. Reached for his hand, the light in her skin awakening once again. The bond is not just for us. It is a power that can save or destroy empires. The human nodded, determination shining through his tired eyes. Then we have to be careful. Every step we take, every secret we keep, could mean war. They sat together, the chains still binding him, but the distance between their souls shrinking. Saralith confessed her fears, the council's anger, the threat to her throne, and the ancient laws forbidding such unions. The human listened without judgment, his presence a quiet strength against the storm outside. As days passed, the bond grew stronger. Saralith found herself restless during the day, drawn to him like a moth to flame. At night she dreamed of worlds beyond their own, of battles fought and victories won, but also of loneliness and loss. The human shared his memories too, stories of Earth, of war, the hope that had carried him through. One evening, the palace was rocked by a sudden explosion. Alarms blared and fires broke out near the outer gates. The rebellion had begun. Saralith knew the council's patience had finally snapped. They would move to destroy the human and anyone who stood with her. Without hesitation, she sent for him. When he arrived, she released the chains herself, the soft click echoing like a promise. We cannot stay, she said urgently. Palace will become a prison of death if we do not flee now. He stood free for the first time in weeks, rubbing his sore wrists. Lead the way, he said simply. Together, they moved through secret passages known only to the royal bloodline. Sarilith used her power to disable security fields and open locked doors. The palace was no longer a sanctuary. It was a battlefield. Outside, the city burned. Warships flew overhead, dropping fire upon the gates. Citizens ran in panic, while soldiers loyal to the council hunted for the Empress and her forbidden human. As they reached the palace's ancient underground tunnels, Sarilith felt a surge of hope. These tunnels led to the borderlands, a place where no law could reach, a place to start anew. But the human stopped suddenly, pulling her back into the shadows. "They are close," he whispered. "We must be silent." For long minutes they hid, listening to footsteps and distant voices. The fear of capture was real, but the bond between them was stronger. When the danger passed, Sarilith took his hand once more. "Together," she said. "No matter what comes, we face it as one." He smiled, the first true smile since his capture. "I never thought I'd find a home here, but with you I feel like I do." They stepped into the darkness of the tunnels, leaving behind the palace, the throne, and everything Sarilith had ever known. What awaited them was uncertain. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers. But their bond was a new force, one that could not be broken by chains, laws, or war. The Empress and the human were no longer prisoner and ruler. They were something far more dangerous, a union forged by fate and fire, ready to change the stars forever. The cold air of the underground tunnels bit at their skin as Sarilith and the human moved quickly but quietly through the twisting paths beneath the Empire. Every sound echoed off the stone walls, making their footsteps seem louder than they truly were. The only light came from faint crystals embedded in the walls, casting a pale glow that barely illuminated their faces. Yet despite the darkness, a fire burned between them, a fire neither chains nor danger could extinguish. Sarilith's mind raced with questions and fears. The council would not stop until she was dethroned or dead. The Empire's armies would scour every corner of the galaxy to find her and the human who had broken all laws. But in this moment, she felt something new. Courage born from the bond that tied her to the soldier. He glanced at her, noticing the tension in her shoulders. "We can't run forever," he said softly. "We want to survive, we must fight." "Back!" she nodded, her silver eyes fierce. "Then we must find allies. Those who still believe in peace, who see beyond bloodlines and laws." They emerged from the tunnels into a hidden clearing surrounded by towering alien trees that shimmered with soft blue leaves. Here, ancient tribes lived in secret, beyond the reach of the Empire's grasp. Sarilith had heard stories of them, but had never visited. They were her only hope. As they approached the camp, Sarilith called out in the old tongue, a language only a few still remembered. From the shadows, figures stepped forward, men and women with fierce eyes in battle. Scars, their faces painted with symbols of rebellion. The tribe leader, a tall woman with braided hair and glowing tattoos, studied Sarilith and the human. "Why do you come to us, Empress of the Selnari?" she asked. Sarilith lowered her head respectfully. "Because my empire has turned against me. Because I have found truth where others see only fear. Bring a bond that can unite us all." The leader's eyes narrowed. "And this human? He is no enemy," Sarilith said firmly. "He is my bond and my strength. Together, we can end the wars and bring new hope to the stars." The tribe murmured among themselves, uncertainty mixing with curiosity. The human stepped forward, speaking in calm but determined tones. "I have fought in many battles. I have seen the cost of hate and war. I am ready to fight not just for survival, but for peace." Days passed as Sarilith and the human lived among the tribe. They trained, planned, and shared stories by firelight. The bond between them deepened, no longer just a mysterious power, but a true connection of hearts and minds. Yet the Empire was not idle. Scouts reported movements of ships hunting for the Empress. The council sent their fiercest warriors, those loyal to the old laws, determined to bring her back or destroy her. One night, the camp was attacked. Flaming arrows rained down from the dark sky. The tribe warriors rose quickly, defending their home with fierce battle cries. Seralith stood at the center, her glowing marks blazing with power. The human fought beside her, fearless and strong, wielding weapons he barely knew but mastered. With determination, the battle was fierce, brutal, and desperate. Blood mixed with dirt, screams echoed through the trees, and hope seemed fragile. At the moment when defeat seemed near, Seralith raised her hands high, unleashing a surge of energy that sent the enemy warriors flying backward. The power of the ancient bond was undeniable. It was a force born of love and rebellion. When the last enemy fled, the tribe gathered around Seralith and the human. The leader stepped forward, her eyes filled with respect. "You have not only saved us," she said, "but you have shown us that the old laws can be broken, so that new bonds can bring new strength." Seralith smiled, exhausted but proud. She looked at the human, whose eyes met hers with quiet promise. "We fight not just for ourselves," she said, "but for a future where no one is a prisoner of fear or ancient rules." The human nodded. "Together, we will change the stars." Dawn broke over the horizon. The Empress and the soldier stood side by side, ready to face whatever battles lay ahead. Their love was forbidden, their union dangerous. But it was also their greatest weapon, and the galaxy would never be the same. The nights grew colder as the small rebellion camp settled deeper into the hidden forests of the borderlands. The firelight flickered across the faces of those who had chosen to follow the Empress and the human soldier, their eyes full of hope and fear. Each day brought new challenges and risks, but none so great as the growing storm that gathered beyond. The Empire's walls, Seralith could feel it in the air, a tension as thick as the mist that rolled through the trees at dawn. The Council had declared her a traitor and placed a bounty on her head. The Empire's fleets gathered, dark shapes blotting out the stars. The soldiers hunting for her were no longer just loyal guards. They were mercenaries, desperate and ruthless. One evening, as the camp prepared for rest, a scout rushed into the clearing, breathless and wide-eyed. "They're coming," he said. "The fleet will arrive before dawn." The camp erupted into motion. Seralith moved quickly, her glowing marks lighting the path as she rallied her people. The human stood by her side, his calm presence steadying those around him. "We may be few," Seralith said, her voice carrying across the crowd, "but we fight for a future free from fear. We fight for love that no law can bind." The human unsheathed a blade, worn but sharp. "I have fought for survival, but now I fight for something greater." As the first light of dawn touched the sky, the enemy fleet arrived. Massive warships darkened the horizon, their weapons ready to unleash destruction. The rebels took their positions, using the dense forest and ancient technology left by forgotten races to level the battlefield. The battle was brutal. Explosions rocked the trees and fire lit the sky. Seralith used her bond to call upon the ancient energy within her, weaving shields of light to protect her people. The human moved like a shadow, striking with precision and courage, inspiring the rebels to hold their ground. Amid the chaos, Seralith spotted the commander of the enemy forces, a man known for his cruelty and unwavering loyalty to the Council. His ship hovered near the rebel camp. He prepared to unleash a devastating attack without hesitation. Seralith and the human raced towards the command ship in a stolen fighter craft. The engines roared as they pierced through the dark clouds, dodging laser fire and missile strikes. Inside the ship, the commander sneered upon seeing them. "You cannot run from your fate, Empress. Your bond with a human is your weakness." Seralith stepped forward, her glowing marks pulsing with power. "You are wrong. This bond is my strength." The fight was fierce, hand to hand and raw. The human stood beside her, their movements in perfect sync. Together, they overpowered the commander and took control of the ship. With the enemy leader defeated, the fleet faltered, their fear of the Empress's new power growing. Back at the camp, the rebels cheered their hope reignited. Seralith looked at the human, a quiet smile on her lips. "We have won a battle, but the war is not over," he nodded. We fight not just to survive, but to change the galaxy forever. The bond between them was no longer a secret or a curse. It was a symbol of rebellion, of love, and of a new future waiting to be born. Together, they would face whatever came next. The quiet after the battle was both a relief and a warning. The rebels gathered around the fire, their faces tired but filled with hope. Seralis stood at the edge of the clearing, looking up at the stars she once ruled under, but no longer claimed as her own. The galaxy had changed, and so had she. The human stood beside her, his hand finding hers in the dark. Their bond was no longer just magic or fate. It was real, something deeper than words. The chains that once bound him were gone, but the weight of their past battles still pressed on their shoulders. "We have come far," Seralis said quietly, "but the Empire still holds many worlds, many who will not accept what we have become." He nodded, his eyes steady. "Then we build new alliances. We offer a new way, one that honors freedom and love, not fear and rules." News spread through the stars of the Empress who chose a human, the soldier who stood by her side, and the rebellion that dared to challenge the old ways. Some called them traitors, others heroes. But all knew that their union was a force no Empire could ignore. In the weeks that followed, Seralis and the human traveled to distant planets, meeting leaders and outcasts alike. They shared their story, not as rulers demanding obedience, but as equals seeking a future where no one was a prisoner of old fears. On a quiet moon covered in silver forests, they held a gathering. Creatures of many kinds came, drawn by the promise of change. Seralis spoke from her heart, her glowing marks shining softly. "We are not just two souls bound by fate," she said. "We are the hope for a galaxy that can heal, that can grow beyond hate and law. Together, we are stronger." The human stepped forward. "I am not just a soldier or a prisoner. I am a part of this new future, and so are all of you. Let us build it together." The crowd erupted in cheers and tears. It was the beginning of something new, something no one could have imagined before. Back in the heart of the Empire, the old council struggled to hold on, but their power was fading, replaced by a rising tide of change. The Empress, who once ruled alone, now ruled with a partner, a lover, and a symbol of hope for all. Seralis and the humans stood on the balcony of their new home, looking out at a galaxy that was still wild and uncertain, but no longer cold and cruel. She rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "You broke me, but you made me whole." He smiled, holding her close. "Together we are unstoppable." And with that, they faced the stars, ready to write a new story not of empire and chains, but of freedom, love, and endless possibility. The galaxy would never forget the Empress, who chose a human, and the soldier who changed the course of history. Their forbidden love was no longer a secret. It was the light that would guide the future.